Mr. Schneider, looking back at June, how did the world economy perform? What do the DBIX numbers tell us?
The DBIX numbers continue to slide as they had already done in May, and they are now down to a level of just 0.1, which is roughly equivalent to a global GDP growth rate of around 3%. And actually, we at Deutsche Bank, we have just recently revised our GDP forecast for the whole world lower to just 3.2 annual average for the year as a whole, which would still imply that we see some modest improvement in the second half of the year.
Okay. Here in Germany, the figures for June suggest that the euro crisis is beginning to weigh heavily on the German economy. Which branches are most affected?
I think it's more than just the euro crisis, because the euro crisis, I mean, that was already expected and was already seen if you look at the order intake from the rest of the euro area, which has been dropping double-digit rates since the beginning of the year. I think what is new is now that the hope that might be compensated by a relative robust demand from the US or from China, that this has then been dented given the recent numbers from this area. So this is the problem, and that weighs heavily on the export-oriented industry, like, for example, machinery and equipment, like the car industry. And we see by contrast that the more domestically oriented industries, like wholesale and retail sales, but also construction, are still holding up quite well.
Okay, so how do you interpret the UE summit results? Do you think that's the right way to get out of the crisis now?
That's very hard to answer, because honestly I don't think there's no one out there who really knows what the right way is, and politicians are struggling, and it's more or less a trial and error approach by now. But I think what can be stressed as positive is that there is now the opportunity or possibility for banks to be directly recapitalized by the EFS or the ESM, and thereby avoiding that automatically the debt level of the respective country will be affected and is going up. So this is a positive. Otherwise, the decisions have not been, that far-reaching. For example, people have shouted about the 120 billion growth package. There's quite a bit of double counting in that package, and even if you take the number at face value, it's just around 1% of Eurozone GDP. So I really wouldn't expect too much coming from that.
Okay, thank you for your evaluation.
You're welcome.